Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next Avatar news update video. In this one we have some potential like core comic book publishing kind of news related to the schedule. I hesitate to say it's like full on 100% news because the previous news we got from CrossCult, it's another CrossCult story, and the German publisher of the Avatar books. The previous time we got news from these was that they seemingly confirmed a few months ago that there's going to be a new Avatar novel coming next year, 2022. We have, since that happened, still heard no news from Abrams Books or whoever about another Avatar novel happening, being in production. They are literally the only place that has actually said that, but you know, that doesn't really mean all that much. If it hasn't been announced yet, that's fine. It makes sense that the German publisher would have some sense for what the stuff on the horizon is so they can prepare for what they actually need to translate. This, even though it's a picture of Suki alone and stuff like that, is ultimately seemingly a statement on mostly what I'd say is news, in their mind, seemingly a confirmation that there will be a core comic trilogy in 2022 and potentially no new like one-shot Avatar comics coming. So we'll get into it and the wording and stuff like that. As you can see here, it's in German, but I was sent translations from Kainorian. So thanks to Kainorian for sending those to me. So I don't have to go off, I suppose, Google Translate sort of not so accurate translations here. So the 2 pages here are new. We have not seen these 2 officially released. I've seen them because, of course, I have the review copy for the book. These happen in between the 2 scenes we saw in the preview that we've already got. So after the 3 Azula pages, we do get sort of this, which is Suki arriving at the Boiling Rock and doing some training in her cell. Nice images of the Kyoshi warriors here. But there's a lot more pages to happen after these pages before we get into the BU scene, which is the second half of the preview that we've seen. But it's not really about them. They posted these pages because they basically confirm at the start here that they have got the materials basically to start working on the German version of Suki alone. So that's fine. That's why they have these pages that haven't been officially released, is so they can actually do their job as the official German publisher. Then what they go on to say is, we are looking forward to the newest and, for the time being, last volume of the Avatar: The Last Airbender comic series, at least in this drawing style. The next volumes are going to be in chibi style. We are excited. So that's what the sort of end of this statement here says. So the question is obviously in this, how much of this is sort of like insider information from the German publisher, and how much of this is basically them just being aware of what news is actually out there, them looking at the officially announced books and just making a statement based on that. Because it's this weird thing where I would say this exact same thing too if asked about the future of Avatar comics, and right now I would say that it looks like, yeah, this is the last kind of mainline Avatar comic, because they haven't announced the future of one-shots. They haven't confirmed Peter Wortman is going to continue on as the artist, and it looks like, based on the release schedule, that the next book is the Chibi comic. And they said it's Chibi Volume 1. That would make sense that there's a Chibi Volume 2, even though it hasn't been announced yet. So are they confirming here that it's the replacement, or is this just all the information that they have? That's the kind of thing here in terms of, like, you know, I'm assuming they have some information ahead of time, which is why they seemingly have information about novels for next year and what they say about core comics in a minute. So I'm guessing that what this means is that there likely is another sort of delay for Avatar comics, that we might not be done with that drawing style, Peter Wortman, that creative team, and one-shots. But as far as they know into the future, they have no information on another Avatar comic. Whereas they do seem to have information on novels and core comics. So that's the kind of point here. Now, in the comments, someone asked this question, which is basically, why have we switched from really nice art to chibi art? Art that people like to chibi. Like, why would they make a change like this? CrossCult reply, and what this translates to is it could have something to do with the fact that new animated films and animated series for Avatar are in the works. Maybe they want the comics to be isolated optically. At least Korra is going to stay in the familiar style. In any case, a new comic trilogy is planned for 2022. So that seemingly directly confirms Korra comic trilogy in 2022. But we haven't heard anything officially about that. Now, we don't have all of the announcements for 2022. We do know that at some point, at least, Dark Horse did have a Korra comic in production, but because we haven't heard anything in so long, it's felt like something must have happened because of Avatar Studios. Now, they're saying that the Avatar comic switch again is also because of Avatar Studios, which is weird because I think we've always interpreted the switch away from Imbalance and the 5 comics before that to one-shot. That was the Avatar Studios switch. But now they're sort of almost implying that maybe the switch to chibis again, if it even is a switch, is also because of that. Now, my interpretation is actually that I don't think the chibi stuff has anything to do with that. I think they were always planning to introduce a new format like chibis. It's just that they're still in the planning stages, I guess, on the next Avatar stuff, whereas the Korra comics are now a bit further ahead. We'd love for them to be able to put out Avatar comics and Korra comics right next to each other, but over the entire nearly 10-year history of the Avatar comics, they've only really been able to do that like once, and even then not that consistently. So I think that's probably just a release schedule thing of like they probably only know stuff up to maybe middle towards the end of 2022. If there is a new Avatar comic, it probably will be maybe like late 2022, and they probably just haven't heard about it yet. But the Korra comic information for 2022, again, this is where you ask the question, do they know that because they have insider information, being the German publisher, or do they only know that because, like us, they know the information that Dark Horse have talked about a Korra comic and teased a Korra comic for a while now? And okay, it's not coming out this year because it would be announced if it was, so it must be 2022, even though there's no official statement of that. Now, again, there's been no even rumors about a new novel, and they're saying that's also 2022. So it's a weird one in terms of like fully clarifying what the deal is. Now, some of you may be asking, wait, how do we know for sure there is a Korra comic? A few reasons for that. One was a news article from a while ago, right in or around Runes of the Empire time, where Rachel Roberts, who works on all the Avatar comics, confirmed that like going into the future, Avatar and Korra fans will be happy with the lineup of books that we have, in response to a question about the future of Korra comics. And she talked about like different formats and expanding the publishing line. And obviously since that, in the I suppose nearly 2 years since that statement, the only Korra stuff that we've got has been the Runes of the Empire Library Edition, which was an expected release, that's nothing new. And then the Korra art book reprints, which I guess is new in some ways, but it ultimately is just a reprint book. So there's been no Korra comic since then. And you definitely would not make the case that Korra fans have been particularly happy with the books that have been released. So what's up with that? And then obviously the one that makes a lot more kind of like obvious sense, that makes like you go like, ah, there we go. Hi, we're not ready to announce any details yet, but we are working on the next trilogy. I appreciate your patience and hope it's worth the wait. In response to any news on the future of Korra comics this year. So they directly confirm we're working on the next trilogy back in October 14th, 2020. That's 9 months ago at this point. So, why haven't we heard about this? Okay, Avatar Studios happened a few months after she made this statement. That seems to have had the effect of slowing things down, changing some plans, stuff had to be worked around and so on. And especially with the Korra comic, we are expecting an artist change and likely a writer change from the Runes of the Empire team. So there's probably was a lot of work to do that might help to explain why it has been ultimately pushed back so much. But it looks to be potentially the main comic release thing for 2022, at least if we read into what the German publisher is actually saying. So that's the thing. How much do you read into what they say here? You know, it's official. They're the German publisher. Like, there's no reason to deny what they're saying. It's just how much insight do they have into the future that we don't have, is the thing. Because while I say all this trying to defend them, it's also a case of like, wait, for Suki alone, a book that is out in like a few weeks, they're only just getting the materials now? That, like, I can honestly say myself, like, I read Suki alone before the German publisher did, as a reviewer. That's a little bit weird, but the question more is, I suppose, when did they find out about Suki alone as being a thing? Because obviously they have some sort of a licensing deal with Avatar to be the official German publisher, and they get, I suppose, information a little bit ahead of time so they can solicit the books and that sort of thing. So yeah, that's pretty much all there is to say here on this. How much do you read into what's going on here in terms of the two kind of pieces of information that seem to be confirmed here are Avatar comics, mainline Avatar comics, the 72-page books, kind of done for now, that they're interpreting the Chibi comics as being sort of almost the replacement for them. That we're going even further down compared to what we've had before, and that the big comic for next year should be the Korra comic, which they're saying is going to stay in the familiar style, which I'm guessing when they talk about style there, they just mean Chibi versus more attempting to mimic the animation style of both shows. So we'll see what happens there. Like, is that confirming the same artist as Runes of the Empire, Michelle Wong? I don't think so, but just that it's not going to be Chibi Korra for the next Korra comic, I think is what they mean by that. So yeah, what are your thoughts on this and what they had to say here? How much do you read into it? How much do you not read into it? But that has been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.